Crawford, Colorado is a small town in the Smith Fork Valley, surrounded by farms, ranches, and public land. Like many streams in the Southwest, the Smith Fork has long served primarily to irrigate farms and ranches on its short run from the West Elk Mountains to the Gunnison River Gorge, not far downstream from Black Canyon National Park. Halfway between its headwaters and its confluence with the Gunnison River rests Rancho Largo.
When this was managed as a certified weed-free haying operation, there was a lot of spray involved, and I believe that the chemicals negatively affected the mycorrhizae, the fungi that live basically in the soil everywhere, and the condition, the health of the ecosystem, the range ecology was diminished because of the chemicals that were applied. So in the process of doing rotational high-intensity grazing, we've eliminated any imports of fertilizer, pesticides, or herbicides, and we've managed it by simply applying deposits of scat and urine from the cattle. And that high-intensity grazing has given us lots of fertilizer, and this whole valley floor here is very, very rich and productive without chemical inputs. Well, we're looking at the Smith Fork. It's down behind those bushes, but the growth, the density of growth of the understory of willows and river birch and narrow leaf cottonwood has just rebounded because we have not grazed right down to the riverbank. We've blocked off the riverbank, and all of these plants have just bloomed, and you can see these are all narrow leaf cottonwoods out here just popping up, and we'll get down here, we'll see willows and again the river birch. The regrowth is phenomenal. When I came down here 5 years ago, this was dry. There's evidence that the runoff, the high runoff water, pushed through here and pushed a bunch of debris, branches and trees and whatnot down here, but there was not a steady flow of water. As soon as the high water ceased in the spring, this dried out. Right down here you can see another bench and the cut bank from the river, right where all the cottonwoods and oaks are, and that used to be part of a meander of the river. Now the river has eroded another 20 feet below that level, and that's just basically a bench beside the river and no longer gets river flow through it. Very similar to these other benches here that when the river was even higher. and this whole plain here was probably nothing but beaver dams.
Critical to agriculture in the valley, the ecological functions of the Smith Fork, like many streams in the west, haven't always been prioritized. In many places, the stream is highly channelized and has cut below its historic floodplain.
The benefit is the water gets downstream, for the irrigators to use, but it's not really staying here to provide ecosystem services for this part of the riparian corridor. All the cobble and all the sand and all the fines have been scraped. This is bedrock. We are on the Manco Shale, where the stream has eroded down to the shale cap. And now, when the spring runoff comes through here, it just is moving through here. It's unimpeded. There's no natural meander anymore in the stream. This is like it's a water conveyance device more than a river. And this is the Mancos Shale exposed all along here. This was cobble and sand in the past. You can see the cobble boulders up along the banks. But now we're walking pretty much just on bedrock. There's very few places for the fish to hide, very few places for the fish to find a place to lay their eggs, and very few places where they can kind of naturally create a fishery. Right down here, with volunteers from Western Slope Conservation Center and from the Colorado Food and Farm Alliance, to allow some of this water now to run into this channel and to go into this side channel.
The Western Slope Conservation Center secured funding from the Colorado Watershed Assembly's Healthy Rivers Fund and Partners American Rivers to complete this project at Rancho Largo starting in 2023. The purpose of this project and of beaver mimicry is to replicate nature-based solutions such as those we can learn by observing beaver to keep rivers recharged and healthy. One tool we can use is a BDA, or beaver dam analog, and the technique is sometimes described as low-tech process-based restoration, or LTPBR. Process-based restoration is a learning experience, as each site is different, as rivers and riparian areas are dynamic and diverse systems. Although this learning process occurs slowly, over time there are indications that this riparian area corridor is responding well to ongoing LTPBR work, and there are positive signs that this type of work is benefiting native plant communities, wildlife, and the local habitat.
This landform of these big broad plains, there's one here, there's another one up another level, that these were caused by beaver dam action. So beavers slowed down the river, silt and sand was deposited in a level, flat plain, and it did so subsequently over thousands of years, and is now eroded down to the point where it's eroding faster and faster because there's no beaver dams to slow it down anymore. And a huge volume of former floodplain is now a highly eroded stream channel. Now, if we can do more of these side channel beaver dam analogs and actually get the side channels to fill with water and to slow the flow through here, we might stand a chance of getting a normal stream function back into this riparian corridor. Now we're allowing the water to come out of the main channel into this side channel, and it's just replenishing this whole bank over here with lots of lots of moisture and lots of nutrients from all the sand deposits, and we walk down here, you'll be able to see that a little bit more. The water is reunited after passing through this thick wetlands and undergrowth. It should be here all over this whole river, but with those high peak runoff events, it just scoured that cobble base out of here. And these kind of series of steps is just the exposed Mancos Shale. Look at all of the new growth that's over on that side of the river. In large part because we're not grazing it. And when we did graze it initially, the cows found the willow and the narrow-leaf cottonwood to be delicious, and they ate it down. Now I think I'm seeing the benefit, ecosystem services benefit of all of those young trees for other wildlife, something other than cattle, at least right here in the riparian corridor. The amount of vegetation that's coming back on the stream bed, especially the small cottonwoods and the small willows, is just phenomenal. Because I was trying to create a little pond for the fish for their babies, and then this spring the floods came through and just blasted it all out of here. Now all of the water that we have out of the main channel comes back in the form of these little rivulets that come down to the water, and they re-enter the Smith Fork. And there's several of these spots along this entire bank where the stream is basically rejoining with the main flow of the Smith Fork right here. And you can see all the deposits of the cobble and the stone and the rock that are here. And then further down here, you can see the Mancos Shale. And the river's starting to erode all of the cobble and rock off of the Mancos Shale. And during high runoff events, all this cobble and rock is basically being pushed further and further downstream. And these kind of series of steps is just the exposed Mancos Shale. There is another beaver dam analog that I created down here about 3 years ago, and it doesn't hold water right now because there's no flow coming across here. But because we were not grazing this, all of this food source and building material sources here available should a beaver family decide that this is a good spot to come in. Well, this is meant to mimic what a beaver dam does. And a beaver dam basically slows down the water and allows the sediment to drop out of the water. And the water that passes through is then cleaner, and it also provides irrigation for all of those trees and shrubs and grasses below the beaver dam. Prior to us putting this in, this was just a dry sandy bank that only got water during peak flow once a year. The water that comes out of the beaver dam analog runs through this entire bank of the river, and it in essence has little braided strands of water irrigating this entire bench. And we're seeing willows coming back. We're seeing bearberry coming back. We're seeing just a whole lot of annuals that pop up, and just a rich understory of grass. And if I walk back through here, you can see just how thick this grass is. Prior to us putting this in, this was just a dry sandy bank that only got water during peak flow once a year. This is the second rebuilding of this, because this year we had a huge snowpack and a lot of runoff, and there was a massive amount of water that went through here. I had thought that it had taken our original beaver dam analog and just blew it out, but that's not what happened. What happened is more and more sediment was deposited. We actually have about 3 feet of sediment deposited. There's probably somewhere on the order of 70 tons of fine sands, silts, clay that are deposited here now and not carried on further down the river. The water is reunited after passing through this thick wetlands and undergrowth.
Process-based restoration is working to recreate and restore natural functions that promote watershed health and greater climate and drought resilience. Conservation and restoration science has made great strides in recent decades in learning how natural processes and the services of the ecosystem itself can serve to support our lives, livelihoods, and our more secure future.
Nature-based solutions are an ongoing story told over time. They start with observation and through trial, success, and setbacks unfold. Can natural systems themselves help show us ways to restore their own health? And with persistent drought and climate change threatening our precious headwaters, what can we learn from these beaver tales?
A lot of these trees would be perfect food and shelter for a beaver colony, and hopefully at some point in time the beaver will decide that this is a great area to move into and just kind of maintain the work that we've started. This is again man's best attempt at mimicking a beaver dam, using locally sourced natural materials that are available here on the land. And the amount of water that's passing through here is largely undiminished. There's a little bit of water that's retained in the pond, but it provides an excellent fishery for the very young trout fry. That's my original beaver dam analog down below, and then this year we brought up more sand and sediment that had been deposited, put it over the log structures, and then we put in a hay bale ring on top of that to help filter and slow the water even more. And you can see the water's still moving through here, but it's retained enough of water in this little pond that there's actually an active fishery going on. There's a whole bunch of little trout fry that I've seen swimming in this pond.
The Colorado Farm and Food Alliance wishes to thank the Western Slope Conservation Center for stewarding this project. The Colorado Watershed Assembly and American Rivers for funding this restoration work. And to the Lohr Foundation for funding this film.
We especially want to thank Doug and Julie Beal at Rancho Largo, Ashley, who fed the work team, and to all the volunteers who made this project successful.